Okay,
Yes, we are live. Wow, how exciting.
What, can you see us?
Yes, I can. It says live on Facebook and it's recorded as well. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Well, hello everybody, if you can see us. I don't know, because so we've just opened it up now, connected to live. I'm still waiting to see mine, I can't see. This is Uma. Thank you for joining me, Uma.
You're welcome, Yvette. I'm really pleased to see you. Really happy to see you.
Lovely to see you. Thank you so much for doing this.
That's all right.
Can you tell people what exactly you do?
Well, I have a tea company. I used to hand blend my own teas, and it started a few years ago. I'm Sri Lankan by birth, and I always wanted to work with Sri Lankan, or better known as Ceylon tea. And I used to do that at home in my home kitchen, and then I started selling those at farmers markets and stuff. I used to sell it along with cake as well because I love eating cake. But the cake didn't do as well as the tea did. And essentially, the cakes kind of fell off the table as such, and the tea took off quite well. I mean, really well. Yeah. And so now the teas are no longer made in my home, but in a small factory in the southeast of England, and I sell them online. Yeah, so it's been a 5-6 year journey, but it's been really good, really exciting, scary at the same time as well. Yeah.
That's amazing. I recently bought some tea of yours, my friend she absolutely loves loose leaf tea.
Right.
So she was excited to try that. It was a gift actually for Christmas, part of her gift. I got her. So we both love tea. I think more than me, I absolutely love tea. I drink it morning, noon, and night. However, kind of goes quite deep with loose leaf. So it's all about the flavours, and that's what I wanted to learn today. So my first question, I read that tea leaves are harvested in spring, therefore they have qualities to those collected in the summer, different qualities, sorry. Can you tell me more about that and when you harvest your tea and if that kind of affects the flavour seasonally?
Yeah. Oh, it does, definitely. It's like anything, especially like grapes and stuff, depending on where you're growing the grapes, which parts of France, Italy, the mountains, or the lowlands. So I think the most famous thing so far as seasonal tea is Darjeeling Express, or as a restaurant, Darjeeling First Flush. So tea is grown in the Darjeeling Mountains, Himalayan mountains in northern India, and they pluck tea. The first flush is the first buds that come out in spring. So around this time, March, maybe late February, March, and possibly into April, because seasons have changed. Or with global warming, the seasons have changed quite a bit. But that first flush is prized property. It's extremely expensive. It is beautiful, beautiful tea. In fact, Fortnum & Mason's, the big department store in London, they actually fly in the first batch of first flush tea because it's so sought after that people will pay extraordinary amount of money for it. And so the first flush and even the second flush, so once the first buds come out, they'll pluck it, they'll process it and send it out. And the second flush will follow maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, and they'll pluck those as well. Those two are really beautiful. And the beauty comes from the fact that for a few weeks, months, the plant has been hibernating. And with the warmth and more water and stuff, it starts sprouting. And the first flush is always much sweeter because it's been storing up all the goodness and then releasing it in the first leaves, the first buds and leaves. And that's why it's sweet. There's a particular phenomenon in Sri Lanka, which is also to do with the weather and the first sort of flush is in March and April. As you know, Sri Lanka is a small island in the tropics, in the tropical Indian Ocean. And they have these winds, monsoon winds, which come from the north, from the east and the west rather. And the mixing of the two winds over the mountains creates an environment which produces sweet, sweet leaves. which
Oh, wow.
no one knows about because it's not talked about as much as, say, grape varieties or even coffee varieties. But yeah, tea does have some beautiful. That first flush is really important to almost lots of countries. Certainly in India, China, Japan, they prize that first few buds that come out in spring.
That's really interesting. Especially how, excuse me, the seasons affect the flavour. Um, like you were saying, it's like grapes,
Yeah,
like wine.
yeah.
So the leaves are kind of like the first leaves that come out. Do you harvest the flowers as well, or?
The flowers, not so much. The flowers are used in some blends. They are quite an expensive ingredient to use. It is usually the bud and usually the first two leaves. So
Right.
I wish I had a TV to demonstrate this, but
Yeah.
essentially what you would need, what you would typically find in most tea leaves, tea packets or tea leaf, loose leaf tea, is the bud and the first two leaves of the plant. Those are the most tender, the ones that have the most goodness in it as well. So that's what they would harvest.
So is that what's in yours, Uma? Your blend? What's in your blend?
Um, Primarily those, but it depends very much in what your end game is. So if you are trying to achieve a really robust, strong blend, then you want something a bit lower down the stem. So you want something maybe the second leaf, the third leaf, for example. And that tends to be the case for breakfast blends in the UK, afternoon tea blends stuff. They're much stronger in color and taste, so they usually use a leaf, the leaves lower down. Um, but in my case, I have a blend called the dark romance because it uses cacao licorice, and so the intensity I want is something from the darker leaf. So I'd use the second leaf in that case. So it's very much dependent on what you want to achieve at the end, and when you guys actually consume and drink it, you should be able to taste the tea leaves and all the other little ingredients, but combine it together. So it just depends on what you want to achieve from it.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about ingredients in a bit, but maybe we could touch on that now because I know it was more so, people are, if people are kind of interested in making their own blends of tea, would you say it's obviously not easy to do because it is a science, but could people go out and pick from their garden? Obviously everyone's in quarantine now, we're all at home. Obviously health and safety, check, really thoroughly check what plants you're actually using because disclaimer, plants are poisonous. But are there any types of plants native to the UK that you could use in a tea?
Oh yes, there's plenty. Certainly herbal teas are a really great place to start. So I do a few lives and recorded herbal tea blending stuff as well. So the easiest one is mint. We have it certainly maybe in our window boxes or in our gardens. And
I love mint, yeah.
And of course in supermarkets as well. So whatever is available, whatever, and either fresh or dried as well works really well. And you can use, if you have tea leaves that have been sitting in your cupboard for a while, coming up to expiry, you can use that to blend with fresh roses. Once again, like you said, just make sure that the roses don't have any tiny insects in them, make sure it's clean, make sure whatever flowers you're using are edible. There are lots of really good books that certainly I can advise on what can be used and can't be used. There are loads of ways of doing it, from with using, tea in the sense of green or black teas or whatever, and also using just herbal tea or, herbs in our gardens and supermarkets. Entirely easy. And it's great fun, actually. It's amazing what you can come up with.
It's nice to do with the kids, I suppose, isn't it? And it's educational as well. Obviously, if you're really careful about what you're picking and you just don't go out picking anything, which I know nobody will, but we're not advising that, are we? But I love stuff like that. I've always been interested in herbology, is that the right name? Herbs and the effects of herbs on our health. you know, and I love cooking with fresh herbs as well. But anyway, we're getting off subject in terms of that. So how do you think climate change impacts tea? You were talking about the winds meeting, the easterly and westerly winds in Sri Lanka, which created an optimal growing kind of climate for your tea leaves.
Yeah.
Do you think it's, I'm just going to read what I've put here. Do you think it's important for you to have healthy, pollution-free environment for optimal growing, which I'm sure you do?
Yeah, it's hugely important. So as I said earlier, when we're talking about the Darjeeling first flush, which is sort of, it starts spring in that area of India starts around mid-February to March, but that's getting later and later, and then you think, okay, maybe it's getting a week or two later, but it goes back to February again. So it's you can never be certain of it, and that is primarily because of climate change, and that has a huge impact on how you plan your planting season, how you plan your harvesting season, and so on and so forth. And obviously has an impact on the taste of tea as well, and the price of tea and so on. And that's not just in India, but certainly Sri Lanka, Japan, China, anywhere and everywhere. The supply of water, the supply of sunshine, you get too much sun, and that burns the leaves and so on. And you don't want to dry the leaves on the plant. You want to be able to do that yourself, so you control how much you're processing it for, or how long you're processing it for. So it has a huge impact, and one that obviously affects livelihood, because people, the pickers, the farmers, the plantation owners, that's a livelihood, and that's generations worth of culture, heritage, traditions that are get. I guess in some ways things will change, and you need to change along with it. But to a point where if you lose your market, then you're losing livelihoods as well.
Yeah. So does drought impact your harvest at the moment then, would you say?
Yeah, it does, certainly in Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka has highlands in the center of Sri Lanka, which are really fertile, high rainfall, reducing over the last 20, 30 years as well. But Sri Lanka also grows tea in the plains, so in the lowlands of, and that certainly has had drought. And that's the case with Rwanda, Kenya as well, where they grow tea lower as opposed to the mountains, and that has a huge impact on drought, on how you plant, what you have in relation to output as well. So yeah, drought. And certainly in Africa, there is a huge problem with locusts as well. So that also, not so much in the highlands of Kenya, but the lowlands that has impact so far as. So I believe the locust populations have been going up over the years, and those insects can raise a whole field after field of plants in minutes. And I've seen it. So, yeah.
I've seen pictures of it. It looks crazy. They're just covering everywhere. Yeah, it's like a plague, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Very serious. And I suppose in any farming industry you're going to get like things that impact your harvest, like green fly, for example. But locusts are just they just destroy everything, don't they, in their wake. Yeah. So okay, so moving on, it's all about flavour. So what blend would you say makes the perfect cuppa?
So if you, so I tend to drink black tea, that is Ceylon black tea. That is, so in Ceylon we tend to just blend, we either have the Highland tea, which is a much lighter flavor, or we have the lowland flavor, which is much more robust. So what we in England have as a breakfast blend, so it's really strong, sort of builder's cup of tea to get you started in the morning. And that is something that you would, typically in England, you would get blends that are from at least 3 other countries, and that tends to be Sri Lanka, India, and Kenya. You can get other countries and they blend it to that purpose. So they're trying to achieve a certain taste to your morning tea or your afternoon tea. So that tends to be what I tend to drink, which is quite a strong tea. I used to drink a lot of coffee, so this sort of kind of replaces that with half the caffeine at least.
Yeah.
So
what blends do you sell currently then? It's the dark romance, yeah?
yes, and
Would you say that's a good morning tea or evening tea, or?
I would say more a tea for after lunch or after dinner because it's got cacao nibs and shells in it. And so when you drink it, the perception you have is that it is sweet. It's not sweet at all. But because of the cacao, because as you bring it up to taste it, you get, first of all, the fragrance of chocolate or cacao. And that sets your mind to thinking, oh, I'm going to have something sweet. And so this is essentially, if you want to replace your pudding coats, this is a great one to do. I tend to have it in the evenings as well when I'm craving a cup of tea and a biscuit. It's a great one to have with that biscuit as well.
I always crave a cup of tea at bedtime normally. I mean, I drink tea throughout the day, but always kind of is my thing. I have a cup of tea before bed. I know it's one of those things. It kind of comforts me and just relaxes me. Just puts me, I could never drink coffee before bed. I don't think anyone could. Maybe there is someone out there who does. But what would you say out of the teas that you sell and you produce then would be a nice morning tea?
I think the morning tea would be the Earl Grey. I have an Earl we call it Earl of the Mole, because traditionally Earl Greys are blended with bergamot, which is a citrus fruit from Italy and France. But so ours is done with a blood orange. So it's not I always think of Earl Grey as an acquired taste. It's beautiful, but it's not for me. And a lot of people who are during the farmers market days, I found wouldn't drink Earl Grey because of that taste of it. But the blood orange is a much more lighter taste and so on. So I would highly recommend that for breakfast. Certainly good for afternoon tea as well. And then move on to the dark romance. And then end your day with the herbal tea I have, which is called Empathy. And that's lemongrass, ginger, and pink peppercorn. And that's,
that sounds lovely. Yeah, nice, refreshing one. Yeah.
Great after dinner for digestion purposes, and really lulls you back into sort of sleep mode as well.
I love lemongrass. It's probably one of my favorite essential oils because it is so refreshing. It's great in an oil burner. So I imagine like in a tea it's got that kind of zingy freshness to it, really.
It does.
I'll order some of that off you, Uma.
Good, great.
Right, okay, so does the vessel, next question, actually make a difference at all to the taste? We see people using glass teapots and ceramic. Is there any preference, or is it just enjoyment, how you drink your tea?
Well, I think that if I was to advise, I would say ceramic is the best one to brew your tea with. But I actually brew my tea in a metal teapot. And that's because it's my mother's teapot. She had it for years. And so I use it because it reminds me of her. So there are reasons that we all use certain teapots because they belong to our grandfathers or our fathers or whatever. So that's really that's perfectly fine.
That's sentimental, isn't it? So it kind of connects you to the memory as well every time you make a drink. So that I love that. I love that. So I see that you're using like a ceramic cup to drink your tea.
So anything ceramic holds the heat, the warmth of the tea, and also you can handle it quite well and not burn yourself at all. So that works really well. So as long as you think about the fact that you want to contain the heat, rotate it for as long as you can, and then release the heat gently as well. Japanese use our cast iron teapots. Those are beautiful, absolutely stunning, and they are beautifully crafted as well. And those are really wonderful for roasted teas, green teas, and also black tea as well. But those are more kind of really pretty, I think, for a everyday functional thing. They're lovely if you're having a sort of a gathering and having a cup of tea at the end of the day or out there after a meal. But I think that is, it's only really
maybe a bit impractical for every day.
Yeah.
I think I might have seen them in Home Sense, actually. They are beautiful. I was going to get one, actually. I might still get one when I see one. They were quite flat. I don't know if it's the same one, but they were cast iron but quite flat looking. They had quite a long handle. I thought they looked really visually beautiful, but when I picked it up, obviously being cast iron, it was really heavy. So it was definitely on the back of my mind to think, oh yeah, it's like one of those little treats that you like, you might invest in. Right, so moving on to sustainability and conservation, how do you incorporate this into your business? Like, what's important to you? What measures do you take to ensure safe working and a sustainable quality product?
So all the tea that we use is sustainably sourced, and all the tea comes from Sri Lanka. So we currently work with about 4 to 5 tea estates. So we know that those have been audited, and we know that where their teas are farmed, how they're farmed, how they treat the workers, and so on, how it's brought in before it's blended here. The same with the ingredients we use as well. We go through a process of auditing all of our ingredient providers and so on. Insofar as the packaging is concerned, because you obviously have the product as it grows, and then you blend it, and then of course the process of how you sell it onto a retailer or to you guys, and that is very important to me. And so all the tea comes in tin, and the idea is that you would buy a tin initially, and then any refills would be just a little packet. And so apart from the tin, which can't be recycled, of course, but it's a reusable tin, is that everything is biodegradable. So the little plastic bag, or I suppose you could call it plastic, where the loose tea or the tea bags come in, is actually made out of nature flex. So you can put it into your compostable bin, as does the tea bags, the tags, and everything. There's no glue used, no plastics whatsoever. So you can use your compost as soon as you're finished with it as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So do you go out there? How often do you go out there to Sri Lanka to?
I was there last year. I certainly will be going this year. But I try and go at least once a year, if not every 2 years. I also don't really need to go out every year. Try not to fly as much as I used to. And also there are really good organizations which can do a lot of the work that I would do if I was going out there to do any audit work and so for sustainability is concerned. So there isn't really a need to go out there to check on anything as such, because from the growth and the harvesting to brewing up to blending and to packing and sending it on here, there are great organizations which do it. The factories are known to us, that kind of stuff. So once you know all of that, you don't really need to go out, fly out to check on these things. It's unnecessary, I think.
No. So it would just be a case of once in a while, just for enjoyment or just to kind of touch base if needed, but not really necessary as a business.
Yeah, not necessary.
Brilliant. And we've got technology now as well, haven't we? So there's a lot of FaceTime. You can actually FaceTime your growers or your connections and walk through areas as well.
It's amazing how many Zoom calls I've had in the last 5 weeks. I've never had that many Zoom calls. It's amazing. Yeah, you can check. You can do so much with what we have, as opposed to getting on a plane for a week or a few days. Makes a huge difference. And when you have that relationship, I think that is worth nurturing rather than trying to fly out to go and check on something that doesn't need to. But of course,
definitely. I completely agree. So it's about creating strong working relationships that you trust people and your connections. So how big is it kind of how big of an organization is it out there? Do they supply, is it like a little farm that you work with, or do they supply a lot of different companies and you're kind of one of them that they kind of work
Uh,
with?
so Sri Lanka has massive estates, tea estates. They also have very small estates, and so how it works for Sri Lanka is the Ceylon Tea Board, the Sri Lankan Tea Board, has an auction process. So all tea bought in Sri Lanka must go to auction, apart from 10% of any estate or farm's production. So I am part of that 10%. So we're not part of the auction, but if
Right.
if you wanted large scale, so for example, Unilever and the likes of those sort of massive companies, they would most likely buy from auction because they're buying tons of tea. I don't need to buy tons of tea, and I don't intend to ever buy tons of tea.
Yeah.
So I part that 10%, which is allowable from a farm, and they tend to be, they vary in sizes. So Sri Lanka has changed somewhat its production and its growth in black tea, the black tea market. They've seen a drop in black tea over the years, and they have very much gone into refining and growing specialty tea. So Sri Lankan tea or Sri Lankan black tea is considered one of the best in the world, and they're trying very hard to refine that even further and bring in what's called golden tip teas, silver tip teas. So the very tiny buds are very prized items. I don't use those, but they have cloned. They've done a lot of research, done a lot of cloning of plants and so on, so resistant to pests, to drought, and so on and so forth. So they've gone a different route from many other countries. Um, so that works in so far as their market and how I would purchase from them. But for the purpose of my current collection, it tends to be the 10%, and they vary from small farms to sort of medium-sized ones.
Lovely. Right, okay, so moving on to your brand as a business owner, when it comes to your brand, how much time do you spend on the visual side? So your logo, your brand colours. Did you find that process difficult, or did you sail right through that part of your business?
I loved it. I love the whole. I'm not a branding person or anything of the sort, but I had help with it, obviously, and but I loved it. It was a great way of learning about myself and what I wanted to achieve in year or 10 years and all that kind of stuff. I loved it. It was a lovely, really beautiful process of understanding what the brand is about, what I want to communicate about Sri Lanka, about communicating about people who harvest those teas and process those teas as well. So yeah, I loved it. It took a while. I had a name for it when I was on the farmers markets, which didn't, and that was a great way of finding out if that brand worked for East London. And that was it didn't work at all. So I had to change it. And then we came up with the name as T Smith, which when I first heard it, I thought that's it. Let's
it just clicked. You just yeah. So how many kind of farmers markets did you used to do?
I did 3 in East London, 2 in Hackney and 1 in Bow, London. So yeah, it's amazing how physically demanding it is, and that you're prepared for days, 3 to 4 days for it, and then Saturday and Sunday. And but I loved it. It's a great way of having a chat with people, and people would be happy to chat for half an hour to an hour. It's brilliant.
Yeah. It's a real buzz. I worked for my family business for about 15 years, going way back now. So I have had experience working in farmers markets and on those type of setups, and I know where you're coming from. It's just non-stop. As soon as you set up, it's just go the entire day. It's a real buzz. It's lovely as well to be out in the community. It's always one of my favourite kind of things to do. So what other suppliers have you got? Where do you is it predominantly online for people to order, and then you kind of around your community go, or
So if it's people buying it, it's online only. But my primary business was with restaurants and cafes in London, but that all of them cancelled their orders. Understandable. They don't have any customers coming into their places, so they've cancelled. So all of that is dried out. But I was saying to someone else a few days ago, that the first few days after lockdown was like, oh gosh, what do I do now? But after you sort of come to terms with it and realize this is what's happening, but the last few weeks have been really productive. I've reached out to retailers and got into some really fantastic collaborations and stuff. It's been
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, moving back to my family business, which is Muffs of Bromber on the Wirral, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a delicatessen and fine food store. We used to supply, well, we kind of went into local sourcing years back. I mean, I'm talking, when was it now? Might have been 2002 at a guess, maybe. But what my point is here is, a lot of the supermarkets, like Asda, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, they all look for local suppliers and they love that local sourcing. In fact, I think it was encouraged by the government, I'm not entirely sure, for them to bring in local source suppliers. So have you approached the supermarkets to...
Not yet. I'm hoping to approach some of the sort of the Planet Organic, that kind of sort of range of people, because of the...
I actually know somebody as well. Actually, I don't know if we could maybe hook you up, and she could definitely give you some advice. She's a lovely girl, Victoria Tapley. It's actually her dad's birthday today, so happy birthday, Roy.
Happy birthday, Roy.
But she works for high up in Asda, and it's all to do with I think it's sourcing and the food and everything. So she'd definitely be a connection for you to get some.
That'd be great.
Get some advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So next question: being the CEO of your own company, how do you manage your business and your downtime to create balance? Do you find it easy to switch off after work, and how do you manage that stress? Because being a solo entrepreneur, it is all on you, isn't it? It's go from morning to night. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I used to work in financial services before, so I think I still work like I'm working for one of the banks. So I tend to work long hours still, because you're aware that it is your baby and things are changing, and they will change even more in the coming weeks and months. And so you want to try and be ahead of the game. So I have no idea what the game plan is at this point. But I've also learned that you will burn out, and if you burn out, there isn't anyone else to take on the mantle. So it's very much being aware of it, and then being careful of how you manage your health as well.
Yeah.
So I do have downtime every day. I make sure that I do that. Either I do a workout, or I go out for a walk, or I do some gardening. I'm not a keen gardener, but I do some. But I think one of the things I found, the hardest thing I found, was the loneliness of working for yourself. But I'm so grateful for all the connections that we've made through groups, Facebook groups, Instagram groups, Zoom calls, all of that stuff. If it hadn't been for that, I'm sure I would have factored in. It can be a really, really quite a scary place because I don't come from a family which ever had a business. I don't come from a business background or education or anything of that sort. So it was very difficult to make a transition, and then to think, oh gosh, how do you do this? So, how do you post on social media? Such stuff, yeah.
That's the best way to do it, though, because, it's just all natural and you, isn't it? I don't know, pulling on my experience from working for my family business, it taught me one thing, and it was hard work. We worked day and night, basically. You know, it was 6-day weeks, long hours, and to the point where I got a little bit older and I negotiated with my dad. I said, I want 2 days off a week, I want a Monday off.
Yeah.
He was like, a Monday off? You want a Monday off? It's like, yeah, I want a Monday off. So I actually negotiated that with him.
Yeah.
But still, it was long hours and hard, strenuous, laborious work. You know, my dad's been doing it all his life, you know, since we were kids. And we're not, you know, my mum and dad won't mind me saying I'm not broadcasting personal information here, but, you know, we're not a rich family. We're very humble. Whatever we've got, like my family have got, they've worked so hard for it, and they, you know, it's just taught me grind and hard work, dedication, and commitment. And you know, you have to have that mentality moving forward, with anything in life, I think, isn't it? You know, so, you know, that taught me that really from my family business. I was very, very lucky to be a part of that, because I saw things that maybe I wouldn't have seen otherwise, even though I was probably, you know, going back now to then, you know, I think I'd have handled certain situations a little bit differently. But I've definitely drawn some really good experiences from, like, going on the train with my granddad and my dad for the first time to meet Asda in Leeds. And we got the contract. That was an amazing experience. You know, you get these memories. It's just like you build these memories of connecting with your growers in Sri Lanka and developing your business. And this is just all, it's priceless. And it's just moving forward. So I think you're doing a wonderful job. And you know, I've bought your tea, and I'm going to buy some of the evening tea, the herbal tea, because I do love herbal tea. And I've got a little teapot that Emily got me here. She got me here. Yeah, so I've still got it. I love it. I use that for my loose leaf tea. So right, next question. What advice have you got for new entrepreneurs in the tea industry, or in industry in general, even if you're thinking about starting a business?
I would say make sure you have a really good network of people that you can count on, who would support you, who would be your cheerleaders, who will root for you. That I think is people. It's always you sell to people, you invest in people, and it is people who invest in you that would make the difference as well. Definitely, always
connections. Because we met in a group, didn't we? A social curator group, which I found greatly. It's just helped me immensely in terms of finding my voice online and learning how to communicate. And obviously, I'm a photographer, I'm a portrait photographer, but I'm not a big business by any means. But I'm learning how to navigate myself as a business online, and meeting with yourself and other girls in the group from the UK, just seeing the differentiation, I can't say the word, you know, just seeing how everyone's industry is completely different, and what everyone's doing to hustle for their dreams is really inspiring. It's really inspiring.
And a very supportive group as well. I mean, we can ask if there's any question from social media, photograph, to, you know, how you're finding today, and, you know, remembered birthdays, really simple things that you would do as friends. You have it across an online community, which is really quite priceless, really lovely.
I've got to say, I don't get an awful lot of time to log on to my social curator account, but I know Jasmine always says, even if you utilize the 1%, it's 1% difference, isn't it? But you know, it is very much about the coaching for me. The coaching that she provides definitely is priceless, you know. And right, okay, so we're going to move and flip it now. So what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
It's something that a previous boss told me, which was, don't work hard. I mean, work hard, yes, but work smart.
Yes.
That's something I still try and do.
Definitely. So Yeah, there is a complete difference between working hard and
Yeah,
working smart.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's
definitely.
things like how many hours you do per day was something that we took a lot of pride in saying, I did a 16-hour day, I did a 14-hour day, and it's been doing for
Yeah,
3 weeks, 4 weeks. There's
yeah,
not really nothing to be proud of at all. It is, you could have possibly done that work in far less that time and be far more effective. And it is,
yeah.
I think it is about thinking about what your end goal is and how you can get there the quickest and the most effective way without spending too much money and too much effort by getting the best result. Well,
Mm. It's smartly utilizing your energy, isn't it? Like you say, so it's not like slaving away the entire day and becoming some type of hero in your own life and, oh, look at me, I've got this on, I've got that on, I've got the other on.
yeah,
Because it can just lead to burnout for one. And, again, it's quite a hectic state. I mean, some people might thrive off that.
yeah, cool.
But I completely agree. It is about like engaging your brain and having a
Mm,
plan and being smart with your time.
yeah,
Isn't so it's also safeguarding your own energy, isn't
yeah,
it? I suppose.
exactly.
Yeah, so you're
Especially,
not crushing like the sit. But then there are people like Gary V, I think, and he crushes it, doesn't he? Morning,
yeah,
noon, and
I mean,
night. So I mean,
that's just him.
yeah. So I think it's story is unique for everyone, isn't it? I
Mm,
don't know what my best piece of advice I've ever had. I'll have to think on that.
mm.
Right, what book are you currently reading at the moment?
I am currently reading Emma Jane Unsworth, Adults. Um, I've heard about her. I belong to a book club, and this is a book club for our Wednesday meeting. So I've just about almost finished. I've got a couple of more pages to go. It's a lovely book. It's easy to read. It's set in East London. A media type young lady who's 35. It's about um, relationship with a guy she is going out with, and her mother as well. It's exploration of relationships as life tends to be. It's really good, fantastic book.
Fab, fab.
How about you? What are
Um,
you reading?
I've just finished The Art of Creative Thinking. Yeah, by Roy, what's his name? I've got it up now. Oh, sorry, Rod Judkins. I found him. He's a professor in a university, and it was really, really interesting to hear all of his stories and
Mm,
just how broad his mind was.
mm,
It was lovely. It was refreshing because
yeah.
it was definitely a really good read. It was let me see if I can see how long it was. I was actually an audio book because I tend to stream audios and
Mm,
kind of do things in the background.
yeah.
Walk my dog, I can do some of my photography or what have you. I like to do multitask a little bit.
Mm,
It's about 6 hours, 7 minutes long.
that's not too bad.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it is interesting and it opens the door to just creativity, and just the license and just people over the ages as well, from Michelangelo, to modern day things, and just how if something's the norm, to kind of, reject that.
Mm,
It's definitely worth a read, I would say. Um, and I struggle with some audiobooks because I find the narrators a little bit grainy. So I start listening to one, I'm like, oh no,
yeah.
I can't do it. So
Right, but,
I have to kind of find somebody that kind of resonates a little bit with me.
mm.
So what accomplishment are you most proud of to date?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. I think it is a transition I made from corporate to having started my own business. I'd always wanted to do it. At the same time, I would think I'm never going to do it. It's too scary. It isn't what we do.
Yeah.
It's not for me. I don't have experience. The usual excuses and reasons we have for not doing it. But once I did do it, I thought, oh, it's as easy as that then. Yeah, but it's one that I am still really proud of.
It's a big leap, isn't it, to go from full-time corporate to... So you haven't got any background with teas at all, just a burning desire and a love for tea to kind of that pushed you through? When was the kind of the moment in history where you kind of was sat there with a cup of tea and you thought, I want to do this, I want to move forward?
I always wanted to do it because Ceylon tea is probably the most famous thing out of Sri Lanka. So I always knew that I wanted to do something with Ceylon tea. What it was, I had no clue. But my mother had a business baking cakes and stuff, and she was a very good cook as well. And I think when I was first started working, I thought about how I could eventually sort of give up corporate and do something of my own. And I think, over time you talk about it with friends and family, and it came to be that when I resigned, I retrained as a pastry chef at Cordon Bleu. And the idea then was very much to set up a Ceylon tea house. So I'd be serving Ceylon tea with cakes and pastry and that kind of stuff. So but it was always there at the back of my mind, brewing away, and it's always been there. It's really hard to quantify it as such, but it's always been there.
When was the first time you connected with your growers then? Moving back to the first part of our conversation, what year was that?
The first part was really only just last year when I went to Sri Lanka. But because I had been buying tea through people we know in Sri Lanka, I know the people who actually sell the tea, who also own the plantations as well. So it's very different from, knowing people who own it to those who actually operate, carry huge bulk of tea across the farms, who the women and the girls who actually pick it, to the guy who stays up all night to make sure that the drying process is going well. Very different. So that sort of connection to the grassroots and that level, I did that over a course for a week or bit last year only. So, but it's been great for a while because establishing sort of a channel for have tea sent to England does take a while, and you need to trust them, they need to trust you, they need to know where your business is going. Is it worth sending 1 kilo of tea when they could be selling 100 or tons of tea, and so on and so forth. So it does take a while, but really sort of the grassroots stuff last year.
Brilliant. I remember seeing your photos as well that you posted online of you in Sri Lanka. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so moving forward, if you could choose to share a cup of tea with anybody in history, who would it be?
In history, wow. I think Mr. Mandela, Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
I grew up in Zambia, which is in Southern Africa, at a time when he was still in prison. I was there when he was released from prison, and the first country he visited was Zambia as well. The ANC, which he was head of at the time, was based in Osaka, where I grew up. So one that I've always been very proud of, and I've obviously greatly admire him as well.
That's amazing. Amazing. Right, okay, so we are at the end of our Q&A. We're going to wrap up now. Thank you so much for coming on board and sharing your business with us and your life and your dream.
Yeah.
How can people connect with you, Uma?
So it's Miss T Smith, which is one word. So Facebook, Instagram, I have a website which is www.misssmith.com, and Twitter as well. Yeah.
Well, what we'll do, we'll post a link in the comments as well. So if anyone does watch this at any point and is interested, then they can link up with you.
Course, great.
Thank you so much for sharing your Sunday morning with us.
Lovely. Love having a cup of tea with you.
Yeah, lovely. Really enjoyed it. Thanks so much. So we're going to say goodbye to everybody and come out of here smoothly. This is my first Zoom official meeting. Thank you so much, Uma.
Thank you.
Really appreciated.
Have a lovely Sunday.
Thank you, you too. Bye.
Bye.